New and used car market update for spring 2026. Here's all the info you need to know about the car market before you buy a new or used vehicle in the spring of 2026. My dad sold cars for 43 years. He's going to give you his insights. And 6 years ago, we started CarEdge.com to help customers. You ready to go, Pops?
Let's get it on.
All right, we're going to start with the new car market. We're going to break down the new and used car market. At the end of each, we're going to give you a buyer's or seller's market rating. First things first, new car market, Dad, the average transaction price for a new car is almost $50,000. Now, the other important metric here is market days supply. We have a 76 days supply of new car inventory in the United States of America. What the heck does 76 days supply mean, and why is that so important?
Well, your market day supply of 76 days, that means that the current selling pace, the current daily selling pace, that if a dealership didn't get any more inventory in it, would take them 76 days to sell this remaining inventory that they have. So you break it down by daily sales rate, and that will equate to your market day supply.
Now, dealers have about 2.7 million new cars in inventory right now, and 76 days is actually kind of high. During the pandemic, this number had been significantly lower, and the higher this number is, the more of a buyer's market it is. Now, that has something to do with the fact that the average transaction prices of new cars are almost $50,000. We have more expensive vehicles sitting around longer on dealer lots, correct?
Well, we have more expensive vehicles, and yes, they're sitting a little bit longer than they would like. And then there's obviously a limited supply of customers for those expensive vehicles.
Now, 20% of customers are taking on $1,000 or more per month just for their car payment. Now, go watch our other video that came out earlier this week. We talked about insurance costs, and holy cow, you could be spending $300, $400, $500 a month just on insurance. You got to be careful there. But yeah, we have more people choosing more expensive vehicles, or I guess we have less people who are actually in the market, but those that are in the market are those who can afford the more expensive vehicles. And that's where you have these $1,000 a month payments becoming, sadly, more normal.
Bingo, you hit the nail on the head. They are appealing to a smaller percentage of the population that can actually afford to buy cars. And those people are more than willing, at least 1/5 of them are more than willing to take on a car payment in excess of $1,000 a month. Think of it.
Now, a couple things that you have to keep in mind here with the new car market. One is every brand has a different inventory situation, which means different levels of negotiability. And the other thing is things can be regionalized. So different states or different regions also have different dynamics. But let's start first with brands, Dad. 76 was that number for the days supply of new car inventory nationwide, which again, how many days it would take to sell all available inventory right now. Any brand to the left on this chart are brands that have less negotiability. The dealer has more leverage than you as the customer. So for example, at Lexus, where they have a 28-day supply, or Toyota, where they have a 33-day supply, the amount of leverage you have as a shopper is entirely different than at Volkswagen, where that dealership has a 143-day supply. The Volkswagen dealership is much more desperate to sell a car than a Toyota or Lexus dealer is. And that's a really important dynamic to understand and be informed about before you go out to buy a new car.
Absolutely. If you have your heart set on a Lexus, I'm not suggesting that you won't be able to get a great deal. You very well might. You're just going to have to work a lot harder to get that great deal at a Lexus dealer than you would, say, at that Volkswagen dealer.
And I think it redefines what a great deal is. For example, the brands with a lot of inventory right now, Chrysler, Volkswagen, Mitsubishi, Lincoln, Jeep, Ram, a great deal there could be 10 or 15% off of MSRP versus brands that have limited inventory right now, like Lexus, Toyota, Land Rover, and Honda. A great deal there could be $500 off of MSRP. It could be at MSRP with no dealer add-ons. We're still seeing dealers try and get add-ons on vehicles or additional dealer markups. And so it's just reframing what a quote unquote great deal is for the new car market, because it is so different based on the brand.
It's different based on the brand, and it's different based on the region, and it's different based on the weather within each region.
Now, speaking of which, we have this awesome chart here that shows you every single state's market day supply for the new car market. So for example, in Maine, there's a 114 days supply of new cars versus Utah, where there's a 43 days supply of Utah. We have the link, obviously, to the slides down below, and obviously we'll put the link to this map as well. And back on the CarEdge car search, you can get the market day supply all the way broken down to your zip code too. But this just shows that the dynamics within different markets can change drastically, and obviously can change significantly based on brand within that market. Now, that being said, Dad,
Yes.
there's actually some positivity around the new car market in the spring of 2026, because the expectation is that the auto industry is going to have lower sales, which should mean more deals for most brands. APRs, Dad, the Fed is not helping out here. They have not lowered the interest rate of the Fed funds rate. And so I anticipate we're going to continue to see manufacturers, especially those that have leftover new vehicles. So think 2024 and 2025 new vehicles, which there are 600,000 of them still for sale. I anticipate you should see 0% financing, 0.9% financing, 1.9% financing, what you call subvented interest rates to try and move those vehicles. So expectations for lower sales in the new car market, some inventory has built up, and leftover vehicles, plus the Fed not helping, should equal a little bit of momentum and deals for customers.
Well, it should mean that many of the manufacturers will underwrite these specialized subvented interest rates. But you have to realize that you have to have top tier credit to qualify for these specialized rates. As your credit goes down, the rates go up. But at least it's an attempt by the manufacturers to make these vehicles, at least on a monthly basis, a bit more affordable.
I anticipate we will see more lease deals as well, advertised like $250, $350 a month payments. And about a quarter of people now are choosing to lease instead of buy new cars. And it makes sense because, again, they're looking for something quote unquote affordable. Same tactics, or actually just go watch our other videos about how to negotiate a car lease and how to break down a car lease. You've done plenty of those, Dad. But let's end the new car market update here for the spring, which is there are some brands that have a good mix of value and inventory. That would be Mazda, Ford, Nissan, Kia, and Hyundai. These brands have a decent amount of inventory, so there's some negotiability and there's some incentives. There are some, some movement from dealers to make good deals. And if you can find yourself a Toyota or a Honda, an Acura or a Lexus, and you can get a good deal, again, good deal relative, not over MSRP, no crazy fees. Obviously, those represent a good value in today's market as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, so overall, Dad, for the new car market for spring 2026, kind of in the fair to good range. It's not really a buyer's market. It's not really a seller's market. It's kind of neutral. I would say there's a chance for it to become a buyer's market if sales continue to slow down. But manufacturers have been pretty smart about pulling the plug on some production to make sure that supply doesn't get too out of whack.
I think the official term for this market is meh. It's a meh market. It's not good. It's not bad. It's Switzerland. It is neutral. And so it just means as a customer with this type of market, you're going to have to work a little bit harder to find a deal on a vehicle that you're looking at.
My big caveat there is it is a buyer's market for those leftover 600,000 vehicles. That is absolutely the case. Dealers, manufacturers want to get rid of them. So again, some nuance to this assessment. Do it for your local area. But I would say meh to buyer's market for certain types of vehicles. Let's go to the used car side of the house, Dad. The average transaction price for a used car, $26,000. So prices are still elevated. They're up 18% over the last 5 years and up 4% year over year. And importantly, when we start to talk about the used car market, we have to talk about not only the quality of the cars that are being sold in the used car market, but the interest rates you get when you finance used cars. The average interest rate on a used car is over 10% right now, which even though the price is $26,000, which is almost half of what the average new car is, it's still expensive to purchase one of these vehicles because the APR is so high.
Yes, and the monthly payment for many people still will not fall within a comfortable range. But it just is what the market is at the moment. And we've even seen some indications where used car values have already started to appreciate at the auctions, which is probably 2 to 3 weeks earlier than they historically have. So that might not bode well for used car pricing moving forward either.
Before we talk about the seasonality of what's going on in springtime, you just mentioned it a little bit. I want to talk about the days supply again, because in the used car market, the situation is a lot tighter. There's a 49 days supply of inventory right now. Again, remember, it was 76 over on the new car side, but that's actually 5% higher than last year. Now, used car inventory is lower than 2022 to 2024, but it is up a little bit year over year. Now, we have an interesting dynamic in the used car. It's kind of, I hate to say it, but that K-shape that you've been hearing everywhere in terms of the economy. You have compact cars declining in values the most, while you actually have luxury vehicles appreciating in value. This is the polar opposite of all the anecdotes we've ever learned growing up, Dad, where luxury cars depreciate more than, normal cars. It's the opposite happening right now. And you mentioned it a moment ago, as we get into the seasonality of spring in the used car market, we're already seeing some appreciation across the market more broadly, which is not, it's just an interesting sign to suggest that maybe used cars are going to get even more expensive here as we head into the spring.
Yeah, what's really interesting about it is that we know the new car market is geared towards higher income people. And those who can't participate on the new car side still want those luxury vehicles. And so the new ones are priced a little too high for them. And so they are moving themselves down to pre-owned ones, which is helping to move the values of the pre-owned luxury cars higher than where they normally would have been.
Now let's talk about the condition of used vehicles. What's making up the inventory of available used cars for sale? The average mileage on a used car for sale right now, that is north of 70,000 miles. And we only have a 38 days supply of sub $15,000 used cars. So there's a shortage of quality sub 15,000, so cheaper used vehicles. And the vehicles that are out there, they have more miles on them. And we also know more and more of these vehicles are being repossessed vehicles that are ultimately making their way to the dealer auction. So the used car inventory mix right now is a little sketchy to me. And it's obviously a great time to call out, get a pre-purchase inspection before you buy any used car.
I would think it would be fair to say that the quality of the used cars today is at the lowest level they've ever been as far as mileage, conditions of the vehicle, and how much dealers are willing to spend on reconditioning before they sell the vehicles.
So, unlike the new car market, I would actually say the used car market, especially as we head into spring, which to be clear here, spring is when used car values appreciate. And we'll talk about trade ins here in just a second, because this is good news for your trade in or good news for a car you want to sell. I'd actually say we're kind of just more in like fair shape. So, a little bit more of a seller's market on the used car side of things. Again, inventory is a bit higher year over year. Prices obviously are still elevated. But when you look at this as a whole, Dad, the used car market is definitely not a buyer's market. I think it leans a little bit more towards a seller's market. Now, the dynamic that we should talk about is the springtime is when used car prices appreciate. So if I am going to buy a used car, keep that in mind. I might be paying more today than I would pay, let's say, in the summer or in the fall of this year. But if I have a vehicle to sell, the time to sell it is kind of now or over the next couple of weeks here, because this is when dealers are buying up inventory in anticipation of tax return season.
Absolutely. Dealers are desperate for inventory coming into the spring selling season between tax returns and, warmth returning to the country. People will be out buying cars. And so dealerships need decent used cars. So the value of your trade in is probably worth more moving forward than normally it would have been. And that again is seasonality, because we're talking spring and tax time, which traditionally means higher used car values and prices.
Okay, now the slides for this presentation are linked down below. Some of the visuals we've referenced are linked down below. CarEdge.com. Go check it out. You have all sorts of free resources there that my dad and I have built to help you buy a car. Also, CarEdge Pro. So if you want local market data, let's say in your specific neighborhood for Toyota RAV4s, get CarEdge Pro and you can get all that information to help inform what price you should pay for the vehicle and obviously how to negotiate the price down for that vehicle. Go check it all out back at caredge.com. Thanks for doing this, Pops.
My pleasure. Thank you.